Could make it. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajagacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Isopanisad Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 13th day of January, 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Shri Isopanisad, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So we read, last week we read text 11, mantra 11. We'll read it again and finish the purport. Vidyam cha yas tadvedo bhayang saha avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyaya mitamashnute vidyang cha yas tadvedo bhayang saha avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyaya mitamashnute vidyam cha yas tadvedo bhayang saha avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyaya mitamashnute. Dhammaraj. Vidyang cha yas tadvedo bhayang saha Avidyayam Rityung Tirtva Vidyayam Hitamashnute Vidyang cha yas Tadvedo bhayang saha Avidyayam Rityung Tirtva Vidyayam Hitamashnute Vidyam cha yas Tadvedo bhayang saha Avidyayam Rityung Tirtva Vidyayam hitamashnute. Ladies. Vidyang cha yas Tadvedo bhayang saha Avidyayam Rityung Tirtva Vidyayam hitamashnute. Vidyang cha yas Tadvedo bhayang saha Avidyayam Rityung Tirtva Vidyayam hitamashnute. Okay, we read this in the last week. We'll read this translation. Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. So, we're beginning in the purport where it says Sri Isopanisad. Sri Isopanisad instructs us not to make one-sided attempts to win the struggle for existence. Everyone is struggling hard for existence, but the laws of material nature are so hard and fast that they do not allow anyone to surpass them. In order to attain a permanent life, one must be prepared to go back to Godhead. The process by which one goes back to Godhead is a different branch of knowledge, and it has to be learned from revealed Vedic scriptures such as the Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. To become happy in this life and attain a permanent blissful life after leaving this material body, one must study this sacred literature and obtain transcendental knowledge. The conditioned living being has forgotten his eternal relationship with God and has mistakenly accepted the temporary place of his birth as all in all. The Lord has kindly delivered the above-mentioned scriptures in India and other scriptures in other countries to remind the forgetful human being that his home is not here in this material world. The living being is a spiritual entity, and he can be happy only by returning to his spiritual home. From his kingdom, the personality of Godhead sends his bona fide servants to propagate this message by which one can return to Godhead. And sometimes the Lord comes himself to do this work. Since all living beings are his beloved sons, his parts and parcels, God is more sorry than we ourselves to see the sufferings we are constantly undergoing in this material condition. The miseries of this material world serve to indirectly remind us of our incompatibility with dead matter. Intelligent living entities generally take note of these reminders and engage themselves in the culture of vidya, or transcendental knowledge. Human life is the best opportunity for the culture of spiritual knowledge, and a human being who does not take advantage of this opportunity is called a naradhama, the lowest of human beings. The path of avidya, or advancement of material knowledge for sense gratification, is the path of repeated birth and death. As he exists spiritually, the living entity has no birth or death. Birth and death apply to the outward covering of the spirit soul, the body. Death is compared to taking off and birth to putting on of outward garments. Foolish human beings who are grossly absorbed in the culture of avidya, nescience, do not mind this cruel process. Enamored with the beauty of the illusory energy, they undergo the same miseries repeatedly and do not learn any lessons from the laws of nature. Therefore, the culture of vidya, or transcendental knowledge, is essential for the human being. Sense enjoyment in the diseased material condition must be restricted as far as possible. Unrestricted sense enjoyment in this bodily condition is the path of ignorance and death. The living entities are not without spiritual senses. Every living being in his original spiritual form has all the senses, which are now materially manifested, being covered by the material body and mind. The activities of the material senses are perverted reflections of the activities of the original spiritual senses. In his diseased condition, the spirit soul engages in material activities under the material covering. Real sense enjoyment is possible only when the disease of materialism is removed. In our pure spiritual form, free from all material contamination, real enjoyment of the senses is possible. A patient must regain his health before he can truly enjoy sense pleasure again. Thus, the aim of human life should not be to enjoy perverted sense enjoyment, but to cure the material disease. Aggravation of the material disease is no sign of knowledge, but a sign of avidya or ignorance. For good health, a person should not increase his fever from 105 degrees to 107 degrees, but should reduce his temperature to the normal 98.6. That should be the aim of human life. The modern trend of material civilization is to increase the temperature of the feverish material condition, which has reached the point of 107 degrees in the form of atomic energy. Meanwhile, the foolish politicians are crying that at any moment, the world may go to hell. The world may go to hell. That is the result of the advancement of material knowledge and the neglect of the most important part of life, the culture of spiritual knowledge. Sri Isopanisad herein warns that we must not follow this dangerous path leading to death. On the contrary, we must develop the culture of spiritual knowledge so that we may become completely free from the cruel hands of death. Okay, let's see how much more we got here. All right, we'll do a third time next week. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So this verse is sometimes misunderstood. Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. So what does it mean to learn the process of nescience? Do we have to go out there and really throw ourselves into nescient activities and really get a good taste of Maya so that we be fully knowledgeable and we can reject it? No, it doesn't work like that. Try to turn a little bit so don't have your back at all to the deities. That's it. Just a little bit of an angle. Hare Krishna. So, what we understand from this verse and purport is that, for instance, if you study the Srimad Bhagavatam, or when you study Srimad Bhagavatam, as we go through the Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll find so many descriptions. I'm thinking of the fifth canto, the forest of enjoyment, in which Jada Bharat is teaching King Rahugana how one gets entangled in material life and all the sufferings that are there. And it goes on and on. There's a long description of that. We should not neglect those descriptions. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says so many places, he gives contrast. This is how you learn from contrast, isn't it? On the one hand this, on the other hand this. This is like 16th chapter. He has, the first part of it is all about the divine qualities that one should possess. Abhayam sattva sangshuddhi, fearlessness, and purification of one's existence, austerity, all these things. It's a big list, made over 20 qualities. And then he says, now I'm going to explain the demonic qualities. Don't worry, Arjun. You have all the divine qualities. And Krishna says like that. And then he begins to describe it. In fact, to the point where Krishna imitates the demons, where he has a mantra, famous mantra, Ishvaroham maham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. This is part of the mantra. Krishna's imitating the demons. I am the Lord, the controller, Ishvaroham. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. And then he goes on to imitate, I have conquered this enemy, I'm going to conquer that, so much money I have today, so much. So one may say, well, I know all that. I mean, I want to get the nectar. Let me just read the 10th chapter where Krishna describes how he's present. No, the whole thing is of a piece. We just like in the fourth canto, or actually the first canto. I'm reading the first canto again. And there's a long section there where Pariksit Maharaj is going out and he sees the personification of Kali Yuga. He's tormenting a bull and a cow. The cow represents the earth and the bull represents Dharma the bull. And he's beating them. 3 of the legs of Dharma have already been broken, and he's just limping along on one leg. Those 3 legs represent austerity, mercy, and cleanliness. And there's also some respect for truth is still there. We can see it's being destroyed wholesale today, you know. So, and then in the purports, probably he draws back, you know, into the current events of the day, you know, the communists and the capitalists. And right here in Isopanisad he has that. They all both have atomic weapons, you know. And so much of that is, oh, I want to read about Krishna and the gopis. Let me go, you know, read it. No, it's not like that. One should understand, not that you immerse yourself in the ignorance of this world and try to enjoy it, but you don't turn your face away and you look at it with the vision informed by the knowledge given by the Shastra, by Bhagavad Gita and Isopanisad and Bhagavatam and other books. Especially, like I remember reading for the first time the chapter 14 in Bhagavad Gita. It's all about the modes of nature, right? Passion, goodness, and ignorance. And Krishna gives several verses describing the qualities of one in each mode. It was under, you know, and he makes it clear they're not all pure, that there's goodness, but it's tinged with passion and ignorance, and whichever one is dominant like that. And as soon as you read that, with a little introspection, you say, yeah, I can see how that's working. I know people who are like, their whole focus is how they can make money and enjoy. I know some other people, this is just like the first time you read it. You know, you're not a devotee yet. Who are more thoughtful, more pure, more philosophical. They're interested in eternal questions, purity. And you know, other people who are totally lazy, walk into their apartments totally dirty, and they're just sleeping all the time. Yeah. And also you may reflect, yeah, sometimes I fall into that mode, I fall into that mode. In other words, that's what this nescience is. One should learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side, so that one can choose to go to the side of light. The point is that we have a choice to make every moment of our lives. What is life but doing one thing and not doing another, or doing one thing and not doing a trillion other things? We're making decisions, and as you go in one direction, you're likely to go in that direction again, right? You tend to become conditioned by the people who you choose to hang out with, by what you read, what you hear, what you eat, all these things. And if you're just oblivious to the effects, then you're you're just being swept away by the river of Maya, just like the Prabhupada gives like a little cork or a little piece of flotsam and jetsam, you know, blowing away. You have no direction. So the Shastra here, every book Prabhupada wrote, everything he spoke, is meant to give us knowledge by which we can make the right choice for our ultimate benefit, and also for the benefit of everyone else we influence and come in touch with. That's the whole preaching spirit that Prabhupada had, and that's it starts with Lord Chaitanya, you know, and even before him, but you know, he personified it. Here's the Supreme Personality of Godhead who's come down, you know, for 2 reasons. It's very nice to contemplate these 2 reasons why Krishna comes as Lord Chaitanya, because we should also be reflected in our own sadhana, our attempt to advance. And the first one he gives in the beginning, very beginning of the CC, first the first 3 verses are really important. The third one, it defines Lord Chaitanya as Krishna, as the supreme absolute truth. Without accepting that on faith, it's very hard to be a member of the Hare Krishna movement. You know, that's really the prerequisite, is that we accept that there's a God, and we're spirit souls, and that God is Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, as explained in Bhagavad Gita. But in the Bhagavad Gita, you don't have anything about Lord Chaitanya. But then here, this verse says, and that Lord Chaitanya is the same Krishna. He's the same Krishna who emanates the Brahman effulgence, is simply an effulgence of Lord Chaitanya's body, and the super soul is an expansion of Lord Chaitanya in the heart, and Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, the absolute truth, and there's no truth beyond him. That's like it. If you believe that, then you can keep reading, and it makes sense. You can chant Hare Krishna. So we don't even realize that. So he starts out, it's very scientific. Krishna's Kaviraj is so brilliant. And then he starts describing why Lord Krishna appears as Lord Chaitanya. And he begins with this beautiful verse that he takes from the introduction, or what we call the Mangalacharan, of the Vidagdha Madhava play by Rupa Goswami. Anarpita charim cherat karunaihavartirna kalau samapihitamunnato udvarasam sabhakti shriyam ahari purata sundara jitikadham sandipita sadavidya kandade spurata vakshachi nandana. Now this is a verse, the Mangalacharan is a series of verses that is meant to introduce a major literary work in Sanskrit theological works. And so this is part of the Mangalacharan, where he's going to write 14 verses that describe who is Lord Chaitanya, why did he come, who is Lord Nityananda, who is Advaita Acharya, what is the Panchatattva, and then he goes out and adds 3 verses about the different deities in Vrindavan, Madan Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinath. And you read the first chapter, and the first Adi Leela explains all this. So this verse is a blessing verse. This is one of the Mangalacharan has different aspects to it. One of them is to define the subject matter of the book. That's an important one, which is Lord Chaitanya. He gives it. And then to give blessings to the readers, and also prayers. And also prayer. So this is a blessing verse. So the translation of this Anarpita, may the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's appeared as the son of Srimati Shachi Devi, be forever situated in the innermost chambers of your heart, resplendent with the hue of molten gold. He has appeared in this age of Kali after a long time to give what no other incarnation of God has ever given before, the highest, most sublime, effulgent mellow of conjugal love of God. That's all there right at the beginning in the chapter. But still, the essence of this is that he's come to give. In other words, it's preaching. He wants to give what he's experiencing in the spiritual world, which is the ultimate ever-expanding bliss of spontaneous love of God that he's giving. So Krishna comes to teach that, and Lord Chaitanya comes again in order to give it easily. We need it as easy a process as possible, and so he comes to teach it through the chanting of the holy name. And then he goes on. And then he has 2 verses describing the internal reason. In other words, Krishna has his own reason why he wants to come, And but the first one he mentions is to help us in preaching, to teach us. There's Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikutir Ladani Shakti Rasma Ekatmana Vapibubu Parade Haberam Katata Chaitanyakam Pakadamadanato Dvayam Chaikyamaptam Radha Bhava Antutisavalitan Nami Krishna Sarupam. So, as Prabhupada translates it, the transcendental pastimes of Radha and Krishna are transformations of Krishna's internal pleasure-giving potency, Ladani Shakti. When Krishna and Radharani are one, the energy and the energetic, but when they came to earth, they separated themselves for the first time, back 5,000 years ago. They were 2 separate. But then now they've again joined as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who has appeared with the complexion and the mood of Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. You see? And then the next verse gives he gets into the mind of Krishna, and he's actually giving us what Krishna is thinking before he comes. So that's Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrisho Vanaya Basvadyo Yenad Buddha Madhurima Kidrisho Vanadiya. Saukyam Chasyam Mananabhavata Kidrisham Veti Lobat Tanbhavaja Samajanishachi Garbasindo Harindu. So Krishna is saying, oh, Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrisho Vanaya. I really want to taste the glory and understand the glory of Srimati Radharani's love for me. You see? And I really want to experience and understand my own glories that she appreciates uniquely through the lens of her love. In other words, she's appreciating my beauty. It all started, and Lalita Manava has a scene, that's another play by Rupa Goswami, where Krishna sees his own reflection in like a mirror-like portion of one pillar or something. And he's attracted to his own beauty. He says, oh, who is that person? Is so beautiful. So, but he can't really appreciate it. So he says, but Radharani can appreciate my beauty, but I can't do it from this point of view. That's as Krishna. And I really want to experience the bliss that she's feeling by loving me and being loved by me. You see? So, unable to experience these as Krishna, either in the spiritual world or on earth, Krishna comes again as Lord Chaitanya, who is in the mood and complexion of Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. So that's, now, how does that pertain to us? This is all super esoteric. So, Lord Chaitanya, he had these, Lord Krishna had these two motives. So in our own prosecution of Krishna consciousness, our efforts to advance in Krishna consciousness, we have to start, with our own desire to advance in Krishna consciousness. And this is what, Prabhupada appealed to. He started with, so much preaching. You listen to Prabhupada's lectures, you read the purports. So much is about the basic, facts, which he gives right here. Is that we're souls, we're conditioned souls, and we can't be happy in this material world because it's unnatural. We're spirit, but we're covered by a material body. And the material body is dead. It's animated by the presence of the soul. As soon as the soul leaves, it reverts to its nature. You have to burn it, bury it, get rid of it. So we're kind of bearing, there's like a word for the conditioned soul that means the bearer of the body. What is it? How's it go? Dehabrata. Dehabrata means someone who's bearing the burden of a physical body as we go through the different species. We don't need this body. This is a kind of a prison house, a conditioning on the soul, an upadi, a designation that we should want to discard and regain our original spiritual form. We have faith that that's there. That's basic teaching. So, probably so much just to wake people up to the fact that you can't be happy, trying to enjoy sense gratification. It's a revolutionary idea because that's what everyone is doing. Subtle, gross, emotional, whatever you may think, it's all extraneous to the soul. It is an attempt that will ever be frustrated simply by the force of time. The very vehicle that you're trying to use to enjoy is breaking down, and you're trying to squeeze out that last drop of enjoyment. It's really tragic. And then life after life, because your mind doesn't die, so it's filled with all these unfulfilled desires, plus all the karma that you've accrued, and that determines your next body, probably in this stage lower than human life, and you're trapped, in that. So that's the basic. So therefore, a major motive should be, I want to break free of birth and death. I want to attain mukti, liberation from this. That's a perfectly bona fide motive. Krishna uses it all the time in the Bhagavad Gita. Karma yoga. You got to act in such a way that you don't incur any new karma, good or bad, and you get rid of your previous karma. That's called naishkarmya. What does he say in the 4th chapter? One has to understand what is karma, what is akarma, what is vikarma. If you don't understand these things, then you're sure to perform at the best karma in the context of Vedic, paradigm, but still selfish. And likely in this age, tons of vikarma, which just produce so much suffering. So what is that akarma? That's what we should strive for. Akarma is activity that doesn't produce a result. That's sacrifice. Krishna says very simply, everything we do has to be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu or Krishna. Otherwise, that activity, whatever you're doing, will bind you to this world and you'll suffer. Simple. So, but that's all about liberation. How you can get free of your karma and you won't be bound anymore. You see what I'm saying? So that's a first good motivation. But ultimately, we should aspire to attain some of the wonderful experiences that we read about and hear about in the books, and we even experience a little taste of in like a kirtan or something where we're not thinking about how am I going to be liberated, let me jump a little higher. Is anyone thinking like that? No, you're just getting into the holy name, you're glorifying the Lord, you're relishing the devotees and the deities. What was that? That's spiritual happiness. That's a taste of that spiritual ecstasy that we should aspire for. So that's our own personal motive. I want to be liberated, and I want to experience more and more of the taste and the nectar of Krishna consciousness. Eventually, the liberation part just goes away. You don't even care about it. There's verses. The Mukunda Mala Stotra, which I highly recommend, by the way. The first 6 verses were commented on by Srila Prabhupada even before he began writing the Bhagavatam. And there's a special flavor to them. And the whole book is wonderful, but it says, Diviva bhuviva mamastu vaso natake vana takantaka papamam makam avadiyata dashada danavinda chadane me manane pichinti namami. He says, whether I'm born in heaven or on earth or in hell, I have this just one prayer, my Lord, that at the time of my death, I'll remember your beautiful lotus feet. You know? In other words, you stop worrying about the sufferings of birth and death, and you just want to stay connected to Krishna and remember his form and pastimes, qualities, because that's where the real nectar is. So there's a transformation. We're transforming our desires. The preaching has to begin with where you're at. You know, how many times, Prabhupada spoke to new audiences, and even his regular, seasoned devotees who'd been in the movement for 2 months. You still have to emphasize the basics, because it keeps you on the path. He says, yes, I got to get free from birth and death. So we have our desire to advance, both toward liberation, but mainly toward experiencing the higher taste of bhakti yoga, becoming fixed in devotional service. But there's this other element, this other side, which is preaching, which is really part and parcel of advancement. Because look at Prahlad. Prahlad he was born a devotee because he was converted or enlightened in the womb by Narada Muni. So he's already fixed. He's already fixed in devotion. He can't be moved, even by the greatest danger. His father, Hiranyakashipu, saw him as a very seditious element in the demon community, because especially when he started teaching his friends, it's one thing that he was deviant, We figured, well, we can correct him. He's only 5 years old, right? But he starts teaching his friends how to chant Hare Krishna. In other words, he's undermining the whole, the demonic government. So Hiranyakashipu became disgusted. He said, well, just kill him. He's like a poison tree in the forest. We can't stand it. So the natural fatherly love was crushed by his demonic nature. Of course, inside, he's a devotee. Jaya Vijaya, that eventually comes out. But that's another lesson. How the actual devotee, every one of us, was a devotee in the spiritual world. Even all of the crazy demonic people we know in this world, they're all devotees. But you see how low you can go from ignorance, from being covered. So he tries to kill him, and Prahlad was completely unmoved, so fixed in his absorption, meditation on Krishna, that the greatest danger didn't faze him. He didn't start breathing hard and his pulse going faster. No, he's just, whatever happens, happen. Just like Ambarish. They want to burn me? Okay, that's what Krishna wants, Hare Krishna. And he was protected in every case. They threw him off a cliff, crushed him under the elephants, poisoned him, bite him with snakes, chop him up, everything. Not only wasn't he killed, he wasn't even injured or troubled. Now, this freaked out Hiranyakashipu like anything. He got very scared, because that's tremendous strength. There's offensive strength, but there's also defensive strength, and he was completely protected. Where do you get your strength from? Same place you do, Father. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan Krishna. What? Where is your Narayan? Is he in this pillar? You know the story. So, but what was Prahlad's mood when he finally, then he offers his prayers, beautiful prayers to Nrsingadev, right? So there's so much instruction there. He takes the role of a conditioned soul to teach us, There's beautiful verses, so many verses, but one of them that always strikes me. Kutrashisha. Shuti Sukha, Mrgatushni Rupa, Kvedam Kaleva Namasheshura Jambiroha, Niyavidyate Nadatano Drapiti Vidvan Kama Muralavaishama Yangdarapai. So there he's taking the role, or getting into the mood of someone who is in knowledge of this world, but is not protected by the Lord, because he's not really practicing intense devotional service. In other words, knowledge alone is not going to protect you. So what he says, Kutra Shisha Shruti Sukha. What's the use of all of these material desires? The pleasure is mostly in hearing about it. The actual experience is very flickering. Shruti Sukha. It has the nature, therefore, of a mirage. Mrigatrishni Rupa. It's not real. I know that, right? Knowledge. Kvedam Kalevim. What is it? I mean, this body as a vehicle for pleasure, it's got so many diseases, diseases we don't even know or developing, I mean, this is my vehicle for enjoyment. Kvedam Kaleva Namasheshura Jamviroha. But then he says, nirvidyate no pratapiti vidvan. But even one who knows this, who's wise, who's a vidvan, he possesses knowledge, can't stop on the basis of knowledge alone. Nirvidyate, he doesn't give it up. Because the little honey-like drops of sense gratification that you're trying to use to extinguish the blazing fire of lust that in your heart. You get this pleasure, this pleasure, this pleasure. Modolavai, the little drops of honey. Shamayang dorapai. Which is impossible to extinguish. But those little drops of honey cover your knowledge so that you still stay involved in sense gratification. So that's Prahlad through all his prayers. But then at the end of his prayers, he reveals his own nature. Of course, he does throughout, but these are the two most important ones. And he's saying there, and this is because this is pertinent to our theme of having those two lines in our sadhana. One is, how can I advance myself, and how can I help others advance? This is Prabhupada's movement. This is Lord Chaitanya's movement. So he says, my dear Lord, I am not in the least troubled by anything, because you're across on the other side of the Vaitarani River, and so am I, because I'm always thinking of you. In other words, the Vaitarani River is the river between the material and spiritual world. So I feel I'm on the spiritual world, and therefore, any time I want, I can immerse my consciousness in the ocean of nectar by chanting your glories, singing of your glories. Tvod virya gayana mahamrita magna chitta. Virya gayana, especially this word is used in relation to Nrsingadev. Very powerful glories, all of his exploits. There's that beautiful verse, every morning I can teach you. This is prayer to obeisance, actually, to Nrsingadev. It has like a little mula mantra. Om, Hrim, Kshaum, Ugram Viryam Mahavishnam Jwalantam Sarvatomukam Nishingham Vishanam Badram Rityamityam Namamiham. Have you ever heard this one before? Yeah, very powerful. So what it means is Om Rim Shraum. Kshaum is the seed syllable for what do we call a mula mantra for Nrsingadev. It's there in the Bhagavatam at the end of one prayer. And can you hear him ripping apart Hiranyakashipu? Shraum. You hear it? And then, for each deity has its own clean for Krishna. It's very sweet stream for Radharani. I don't know if I'm supposed to reveal these. Am I getting into trouble? I think some of them are in the books. Anyway. So, he's saying, Virya Gayana Mahamata Magnachitta. Prahlad is saying, I can, remember and chant your glories, and Mahamata Magnachitta, my consciousness is immersed in an ocean of nectar. So how am I having any trouble? He proved it, that you boil him in oil, he still doesn't know trouble. That was one of the ways they tried to kill him. Couldn't be pak. So, but he is troubled. He's saying that these fools, not just fools, vimudha, these very, very foolish fools, who have turned away from you and who are trying to enjoy this flickering chapala sukha of sense gratification, I'm lamenting for them. Indriyat, for the sake of the senses, they're suffering so much and trying to enjoy this happiness. So what are you going to do about it? So the next verse he says, Prayena deva munayosava mukti kama. For the most part, these munis, these learned sages in the Vedas, they are after their own mukti. He calls it mukti kama. They're lusty after their own liberation. It's a material desire, ultimately. Sridhar Swami says right at the beginning of Bhagavatam. That's not anything spiritual. You're not desiring to please Krishna, which is our definition of spiritual. And you're certainly not desiring to please others. And therefore, they wander in the hills and the forests and the Himalayas, in places that are devoid of people, solitary. Prayana deva muniyo swabha mukti kama maunam chada. Maunam means literally silent. Chadanti vijane. Vijane means without any people. Naparata nishta. Very key phrase. What is... Para means others. Arta means for the sake of others. Nishta, not determined to help others at all. But he says, I'm not like that. Naitan vihaya kripana. I'm not giving up these fools and creepanas, the wretches. I'm not going to give them up and go alone somewhere. Naitan vihaya kripana vimamuksha eko. It's simply wanting my own liberation alone, because naitan nanyam twadasta shadanam brahmato nishasi. I don't see anyone else but you who can help them, and you're relying on me to give you to them. That's what the great acharyas feel. They're media. Transparent media, Prabhupada would call, through which we can perceive Krishna. Krishna reaches out and attracts us and gives us knowledge of him also. Hare Krishna. So this is the mood of the preacher. This is Prabhupada explains so wonderfully in the purports there. And this is the nature of this movement, and each one of us should embrace it. So that's what this verse is about. Learning the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. We should know about nescience, of the dangers of it, of how it works, and we should to build up our defenses against it. So we always choose light instead of nescience, light instead of dark, right? And as well as how it's affecting so many people, because it'll help us to give them something that'll turn them away from the nescience. And as well, of course, we should cultivate transcendental knowledge, reading the books, chanting Hare Krishna. Everything we do for sadhana, which we basically do, in the quiet place, even if we're not here. We're not preaching at that time. We're chanting Hare Krishna, studying the books, worshiping the deity, all these different things. That gives us the strength and the enlightenment to some degree by which we can be effective in giving Krishna others. Because your faith is being nourished by direct experience. If you chant Hare Krishna seriously and you follow the four regular principles, then your experience of the deity is different. When you see Krishna and Radharani, there's something personal thing happening there, right? But others who come to the temple and see, they also benefit just by seeing. Prabhupada said, I heard so many lectures. He's in Bombay, beautiful deities there, that he worked so hard to give a place, And if someone just comes into the temple and appreciates the way in which the deities are dressed and how beautiful they look, that's a very important step forward for them. And they, then we should make sure they get some prasadam, that's reciprocation, some book, somehow. Because we've all had a first step in this life. Maybe you were born into it, but most of us we're not. We had a first step toward Krishna, which was facilitated by some representative of Prabhupada. It could be the book, it could be the person, somehow or other, reaching out to you, and Krishna's attracting you to him through that person, or that media, whatever medium, it may be. So that's our what we get from this. And the books are full of it, so much. Bhagavad Gita as well, the light and the dark. He's telling about the three modes of nature. He's telling about the yamanic principle. And just the 9th chapter I was reading this morning. And what is that? Avajananti mamudha manushim tanamashatam padam bhav majanando mama bhuta maheshwaram. It says those who are Buddhas, who are fools, they deride me when I come into human form. They don't understand my higher nature, my supreme dominion over all that be. And then he goes on. What's the result? Mogasha, moga karmano, moga jnana bachetas, rakshasi masurim chaiva. He's talking about the rakshasas, the man-eaters and the demons who deride Krishna. And what is their result of that in their lives? All their hopes are dashed. Mogash, they have these ardent hopes for success here. They're all dashed. Mogash, their activities, moga jnana, their knowledge is really ignorance. It's very, very, strong words. Rakshasi, prakriti mohanim shita. Because they've taken shelter of the bewildering energy. They're fully in Maya's influence. And then he contrasts that, just like here. He said knowledge. But on the other hand, Mahatmanas tu. When you hear the word tu in Sanskrit, it's never at the beginning of a sentence, never at the beginning of a verse. It means but, on the other hand, by contrast. Mahatmanas tu. By contrast, the Mahatmas, Mahatmanas tu maam parta daivim prakatimasha. They've taken shelter of my transcendental, enlightening, internal energy. Daivim prakritimashita. And what's their activity? Prabhupada quotes this all the time. Bhajantanana manaso gyatva buddharam abhyayam. They understand that I am God, I'm the source of everything, and they worship me with undeviating attention. And then this next verse he would quote all the time, because people would know, what are you dancing and chanting for? That's not in the Bhagavad Gita. Yes, it is. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dvidavada. Always doing kirtan, chanting my glories. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dvidavata. Now here's there's so much richness. Yatanta means striving with firm conviction. This is what the real devotees who have taken shelter of the internal energy. They have to strive, because we're we're working against our conditioning for millions of births plus the influence of Kali Yuga. So you can't let up. You have to be alert and you have to get strained. Namasyantastamam nitya yukta pasate. They always bow down to me with great devotion, and are always linked to me in devotion. So he's contrasting the demons and the devotees. This is the darkness and the light throughout all of our books. So that's what I get from this verse. And it's getting a little late. Any questions? We have our mic ready. And we have a question or a comment.
I have a question. So we're discussing understanding the processes of nescience and knowledge side by side.
Prabhu, a little closer. Yeah.
Sorry. So, from my understanding, one, it's not possible to be fully renounced or detached without being situated in knowledge. Like one can't have full true renunciation without understanding fully why they should give up such things, or yada yada. Is that?
Well, that's especially true of those who are developing renunciation. In other words, you would say, well, the devotees in Goloka Vrindavan, or even fully, they're renounced, but they never cultivated knowledge. Mm-hmm. In other words, the knowledge is important, is essential for moving from illusion to renunciation and enlightenment. There has to be the cultivation of knowledge. Yes, that's why it's called Vairagya Vidya.
Uh-huh. So, say if one, because very little people function purely on the basis of knowledge.
Very few people?
Yeah, very few people function purely on the basis of knowledge.
That's true.
Brahmanas do, but most people don't. So if one is encountering troubles or difficulties, say in devotional service, and they're not in that category of people that can always function based off of knowledge, what's their situation, or what can they do to continue advancing, I guess, or continue progressing, or get through whatever difficulty?
Well, the thing is,
does that make sense?
I'm trying to suss out the question. The thing is, we're conditioned. Everyone's conditioned in his own way. He's got different depths of condition, and it's often reflected in the mode of nature, or the modes of nature that one tends to be dominant in one's personality. That could be due to inheritance or karma, say. It could be due to the nature of one's body. In other words, some people just have bodies that, for one reason or another, they may have some kind of low-grade disease where they have to sleep more, where they can't do much. You know what I mean? And so they have a harder time coming up to the platform of serious, steady devotional service, which requires so much activity. You got to get up. You need to be able to associate, and so forth. So it's more difficult, but it's possible, but it requires more determination. So each of us has those to, maybe a different slight degree. So what I seem to understand from your question, I may be wrong, is that if you're strongly conditioned in a certain way, just knowing that it's bad, it reminds me of the addiction paradigm, which is always I find it very useful. Somebody becomes addicted, say to alcohol. He's an alcoholic. So it doesn't take long, when you're getting addicted and when you're addicted, to see that this is very destructive. It's destructive of your family, of your health, of your finances, everything, you know. But you're addicted. You're physically addicted. Even though you know that, that's covering your knowledge. Your knowledge is not enough. Just knowing that is not enough. That's why we have AA. I don't know if you know, there's a major AA thing up the street here. We had, at one point we had a couple of people coming down, a long time ago. Because in the association there, one can gather the strength to actually act according to the knowledge. And part of it is prayer. You know, they try to generalize God as much as possible. Higher power, something they don't want to leave anyone out, you know. But it's parallel, you know. The principle is the same in ashram life, in the temple. That's why Prabhupada is so eager to have a place. Until he really had his place at 26 Second Avenue, everything was kind of up and down, right? He had that, you know, he was meeting in the Bowery loft, but then he got kicked out of there. His roommate was crazy, you know, couldn't really get anything going. Although he had some serious followers even then. But until he had his own place where people could actually live, even though they may live very simply, and get strength in association, just the knowledge wasn't enough. There needed to be that other element to boost your will, if you will, and give you the strength to overcome the strong conditioning, which is just a degree of addiction in different ways, you know. So both things have to be there. That's why the knowledge is so important, because the knowledge will give you the desire to overcome the difficulties and become fixed in devotional service. You become interested, you know, it makes sense. It'll increase your faith. But the association and the practice that comes with the association will actually enable you to establish some level of renunciation upon which the foundation of bhakti is built. Unless you can follow the four regular principles, you can't really go very far in devotional service. I mean, that's a big deal, because a lot of people can't. But to get not just the desire, but the willpower to follow those requires association amongst others, and frankly, having faith in a superior, a shiksha guru or a diksha guru, that's why it's always said at a certain point you have to have that. Because there's always a point where you're tempted, and if you don't have, oh no, my guru, my spiritual master will not like that. I can't do it. That personal relationship is what helps you stay on the straight and narrow and overcome these things. So human consciousness is very complicated, and how to manage it in such a way that you're actually turned toward Krishna, and you get the spontaneous thing is not spontaneous devotional service. Raga Nuga Bhakti, Ragatmika Bhakti is a very high state where the things that you have to do, we feel the duty, I got to get up, there's Tulsi Puja, I got to be on time, Those things become the most attractive things for you. You want to do it. You're spontaneously attracted. Oh, chant Hare Krishna. Oh, the time is up. I can't keep chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. To feel like that, the drinking the nectar of the name. That is the natural state. But to get to that point, there's many pitfalls and things. It may take more than one lifetime. So knowledge and renunciation go together, undoubtedly. But just having the knowledge, the gyan, is not enough. There needs to be all of these other elements. The practice, which is strengthened by association, by which you can realize the knowledge, and then, you can actually get more fixed in renunciation and progress. Hope that helped. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.